Hello, this is your summer solstice outlook for June 21st, 2025. And we have the sun at 0 degrees of Cancer conjoining Jupiter. Lucky Jupiter. So that's very positive. It puts us this summer in a positive frame of mind. And what is Cancer? Cancer is a cardinal sign and it connects with the fourth house. So we are going to be very security minded. There's going to be a lot coming out about real estate and real estate actually during this time of the sun and its conjunction with Jupiter may actually get a boost. Also, there may be good or lucky news connected with investments, and that also includes real estate, the stock market, silver, gold, and any kind of investments will be a bonus. So that is extremely positive. However, we do have early, we have Saturn and we have Neptune early on in Aries. So although this is the sun with Jupiter this year on this summer solstice, it does make a square off between Saturn in Aries and Neptune in Aries very early on. And it's pretty much making an exact square. But of course, we have 0 degrees critical on this solstice of Cancer. So with Saturn in Aries with Neptune, that's kind of deceptive and it's very critical. And that kind of gives us a certain reserve when it comes to this square between yes, Cancer, Jupiter, and the Sun. So Jupiter with the Sun, yes, that's a very wonderful, expressive, generous, prosperous connection there. However, when you have Saturn, which is about restriction, and you have Neptune in Aries, also about deception. It's about Neptune. It's about strong emotions, whether it's good emotions or connected with sadness or suffering, what have you, kind of like that, which is connected with Saturn, and they are cardinal squares. That kind of cuts things back a little bit. So, although the real estate market will receive a boost and investments, and we are feeling rather fortunate and lucky with Sun conjunct Jupiter. Well, now with this conjunction with Saturn and Neptune this summer, that gives us a lot of reserve. And with Saturn on Neptune, that makes us a little bit critical. And so, although real estate and investments may receive a boost because of this Cancer connection with the Sun and Jupiter, the boost may be more for the buyers than the sellers because with this square off with Saturn and Neptune, well, that may cut back the prices a little bit in the real estate market, and there may be a drop connected with the stock market and all forms of investments. But hey, for some people looking to invest in real estate, this for you may actually be a bonus. Yes, indeed. But as mentioned with Saturn and Neptune, this creates kind of a critical error. in our outlook and in our attitude. We may be critical of others. We may feel a little bit of afraid to take the initiative, however that may be. And with Neptune, with Saturn, that may also increase a certain uh, disappointment or setbacks if we want to begin projects now. So with Saturn and Neptune, that very delicate conjunction right now really isn't the time to begin that business or begin or buy, what have you, something, anything to start that is important. You might want to wait likely until we get into the latter part of July, as Neptune and Saturn will move out of the early degrees of Aries and move on. Additionally, past this square between the Sun and Neptune, although you are feeling rather emotional, sentimental, and positive, Saturn and Neptune won't be spoiling the show too much, even if we're a little bit nervous, even if we are a little bit overly critical and we are feeling a little bit of the pangs of some disappointments or a little bit of sadness, or yes, because it's with Neptune, a little bit of some deception. Yes, indeed. And we also have uh, the moon in Taurus, and that's very on early on Taurus at 2, almost at 3 degrees of Taurus. Yes, indeed. And we have Taurus in the early degrees with the moon. And what is Taurus? Taurus is very earthy, it's very grounded. And so, with the moon in Taurus, which also connects with the public, the masses, right now we may have to kind of pull back and take a more objective stance, because what is Taurus? Taurus can be the bully. Taurus is a fixed sign. And when you have Taurus moon making a square off with retrograde Pluto in Aquarius, well, that may include conflicts with who? What? With the powers that be. Because what is Pluto? Pluto is power, it is authority, and Pluto rules Scorpio, which is connected with what? The eighth house of authorities, power, power figures, intensity, and depth. So, yes, this summer the volume will be turned up, and we will have to try as best we can to quelch some of this bullying, some of this intensity with each other, and that includes the powers that be. And the weather, especially connected with earthquakes, will also be rather intense because of this square off between that which rules the earth, Taurus, and the moon, and Pluto. And that is also of that which is concealed, which is underground, which is behind the scenes. Pluto. And because Pluto is in its retrograde phase right now, oh boy, that makes conflicts that much more extreme, and a lot because Pluto is connected with powers that be and it is retrograde. There's going to be a lot which comes about with authorities and the past, authority figures that may be rules and regulations may have to be revamped, or again, they may be brought up that has connected with the past. And that creates just that much more of a stubborn atmosphere with the moon square retrograde Pluto. We are not likely, and especially here because it is in a fixed sign, we are not likely to change our mind and take a more stubborn stance about our views and opinions. And again, connected with authority and authority figures. But there's always good that comes out here. So at the end of the day, so Pluto is retrograde, yes, and the moon is in Taurus, but Pluto is retrograde, so that may mean we may revamp or change authority figures, or we may want to change certain rules and regulations, making revisions. And this may or may not have the connection here with this square off between Pluto and the moon in very fixed and stubborn Taurus. So yes, look for disagreements and difficulty connected with the public, the masses, the moon in Taurus, and that fixed retrograde Pluto in Aquarius. But what else is Aquarius? Aquarius is what? It's the future. It is about our humanity. Yes, it is. It is about technology. So all forms of technology will be much more accentuated because of this retrograde connection with powerhouse Pluto. That may include computers, AI, and it may include space, and yet there may be some difficulties in these areas and some delays with Pluto retrograde in Aquarius and the moon in Taurus. So yes, look for some issues with, yes, hacking, possibly, and computers, AI, and this also includes what? Because we're talking the moon with Pluto and Pluto in Aquarius, social media, social anything. A lot of interesting connections, interactions, and I may add again, intensity with regards to social media. A lot of flurry and intensity and conflicts, not just in person with bullying, but we will have to be careful of this connected with social media, social anything and anything that is connected with our humanity. So always take a hint here and look at the bright side. If we apply some sensitivity and be less critical, Neptune and Saturn, and apply compassion, well, then that may help us with all this extreme intensity with the Pluto and moon square. Now we do have Venus, the planet of love, in Taurus as well, and that makes us kind of a wide connection with 21, 22 degrees of Mercury. Almost, it's within 7 degrees. It's an extremely 6, 7 degrees. It is an extremely kind of a loose sextile here, earth and water. However, it is a sextile, and because Venus is in its rulership of Taurus, that kind of makes us feel a little bit more affectionate and loving. So there is some positivity here with this negative connection with the moon and Pluto and Neptune and Saturn. So with the moon in an extremely wide square off with Mercury, the communicator, we are wanting to project and communicate love and affection. So this is really good. Now, Venus, because it is in Taurus in its own sign, it is not peregrine. However, and because it makes an extremely wide sextile major aspect to Mercury, the communicator, in Cancer, it does soften a little bit of the hard aspects with the Saturn Neptune conjunction and the square with Pluto. So that kind of gives us a heads up to a solution to all this intensity is to communicate common sense. We've got earth and water. Communicate solidity. Communicate, well, tenderness, because Cancer is kind of a very sensitive sign, and it's in Cancer Mercury, the communicator. So if we communicate our sensitivities with a little bit of common sense and level-headedness, this will help us through some of this intensity. Now, Uranus is hanging on to the very final degree here of Taurus, but it is important because it is at 29 degrees critical in Taurus before it zips through the sign of Gemini. So with this 29 degrees critical and making an out of sign trine to Pluto, yes, what again does the Earth connect with and Taurus? Yes, earthquakes, there could be weather anomalies, because we're also talking Uranus is at the 29th critical degree here. And well, thank goodness it is making the out of sign a bit of a wide trine within 4 degrees to Pluto. So that's kind of helping us become a little bit more detached with all this intensity, kind of like the good connection, although a very wide major aspect of the sextile earth and water to Venus, the out of sign connection with Uranus in Taurus, 29 degrees, and early Pluto powerhouse, uh, uh, Aquarius, Pluto here, or even retrograde, does give us a sense of detachment and logic. And with all this intensity, it helps us to kind of quelch some of our rebellion. There's going to be rebellion, yes. There's going to be feistiness, yes. There's going to be opposition to authority, and a lot being brought up about policies and rules and humanity and AI, computers, social media. Yes, there's going to be some tension there. But the good thing about this out of sign detached connection between Uranus and Pluto, well, first of all, it's very creative and very inventive, but it helps us to kind of come to our senses and think more logically about all of our intensity. That is for sure. And it helps us to kind of negotiate. In so many words, yes, we are feeling rather intense, no question. But with the wide sextile with Mercury and Venus and the out of sign connection with air, with Uranus and Pluto, this gives us detachment. It helps us to kind of pull back and take a look at everything and really apply maybe not so much sensitivity, but logic. How can we logically connect with how we're feeling of our intensity? How can we solve any issues of conflict with logic and negotiation? And this is also going to be a highlight. But because Uranus is at the 29th degree critical, just before it's going to zip into Gemini here very soon, this may indicate some very pronounced earth changes, namely, yes, earthquakes, but this can also deal with weather changes like hurricanes and twisters. And yes, even though it is not in water, it is connected with our earth. This can be indicative of issues with water, tsunamis, and what have you. So look out for some serious weather coming up this summer with Uranus at the 29th degree of Taurus. Yes, indeed. And we've got Mars now zipping along early into Virgo. Now, Mars in Virgo is not always at its best because it gives us kind of a critical air here. And we may be kind of like the Saturn Neptune conjunction here. We may feel a little bit insecure and take a more critical approach to one another. So we don't want to be overly critical. We don't want to nitpick at each other, especially regarding our actions. We may feel a little more insecure, a little more critical, and again, that is accentuated with Neptune and Saturn in Aries. And that's how Mars operates, because Mars is very discriminating, very particular in Virgo. However, one positive here about Mars in Virgo, it is very conscientious. Mars likes research. Mars is about constructive criticism. Mars is the 6th house. It's about animals, our pets. It is about our work. And right now, there may be a lot of information that comes out about healthcare, employment, diet, exercise. But although this can sometimes be negative news, it may also be positive. Why? Because Mars, the planet of action now, is making a sweet trine to that moon, the masses and movement in Taurus. So right now, certainly we are feeling very grounded, even with all this craziness and chaos and intensity going on. Somewhere we're going to come to our senses with this Mars in Virgo. Very discriminating. So we won't always believe what is being told to us. No, it's not Scorpio, so Mars isn't quite in that very suspicious, intense sign. It's in Virgo. So it's more about, okay, I want to see the facts. We want to do research. We want to dig deep and find out truth and what is reality and fact versus fiction. So that's also going to be a highlight now. And reason being is because something of importance may be concerning a need for research or information that's going to come out affecting the masses. There may be a need for such research and digging deep behind the scenes and acting very critical and discriminating. So this is actually for all some of the negative traits with Mars and Virgo, a positive. It's about getting to the truth, getting to the facts, and acting very discriminatory and taking the very sensible approach, of which we will do with the moon in Taurus. We are going to be very practical and sensible, and that does include the other issues of healthcare, anything dealing with our animal friends, and anything that deals with what? What? The workforce, employment, healthcare. All of these sixth house matters are going to be well discussed and researched and may be connected with what? Pluto retrograde in Aquarius, which makes a quincunx or an inconjunct, somewhat of a minor aspect, but a tense aspect to Mars in Virgo. And with Pluto retrograde, well, we may have to look to some answers. And what? Pluto is retrograde, meaning reform or transform, transmute, but redoing some aspect of the past connected with employment or healthcare, diet, and these type of subjects that come up. And it will be very sensitive because we have the South Node at 22 degrees of Virgo as well, and the North Node in very sensitive Pisces. So with that said, this only kind of accentuates, brings to the forefront this connection with Mars in Virgo, although Mars can in no way make a major aspect with the South Node or the North Node in Pisces. It does bring about these aspects of also cleanliness and this type thing, inspections, anything, sixth house. Can't reiterate enough. Health care reform, employment, that which is about cleanliness and taking care of ourselves, and maybe even taking care of, and what? We do have the North Node in Pisces, and healing others. This is extremely important right now because these are also going to be forefronts of discussion is what? Sensitivity and healing. That's about kind of like Pluto and Aquarius, our humanity, our compassion, our empathy for other people. And with Virgo there, Virgo and Pisces, when the North and South Node are balanced, it's about really keeping up to snuff, the sixth house connection with the 12th house. And that's about in this way, whether it's physical, mental, spiritual, you name it, is about healing. And these will be subjects of great importance now, absolutely. And yes, we still have Mercury in Cancer, so that's all about kind of like with this connection. Oh, yes, that sweet trine to the North Node in Pisces. It's about applying further what? Compassion. So with all this intensity, all this conflict going on right now, all this criticism with each other and nitpicking and maybe having to get to the bottom of some deception. Well, Mars and Virgo will make sure of that. Even the South Node in Virgo and all this talk about finding out what the truth is and research and all of that. And well, a little bit with the weather anomalies and everything kind of gone a little bit crazy, we're still going to have that sense of detachment, Uranus, Pluto, and that sense of, well, sensibility, Venus wide sextile to Mercury. Well, that's going to give us some positive insight to what needs to be done to make corrections. And yes, Pluto retrograde revisions. That includes with the powers that be, that includes everything connected with Pluto and Aquarius as aforementioned. So, the message this summer solstice is to not become overly critical. And it's about honesty. Why? Because Neptune is with Saturn, and Saturn can throw out some of those roadblocks to Neptune in Aries. We want to be very clear about our intentions and about truth, because after all, we do have Mars in Virgo and the South Node in Virgo, so there's going to be a need to figure out what is the truth and what is not the truth. This is going to be the topic. We feel a little bit deceived from something in the news, and this will affect the masses somehow. Why we got to dig to get to the bottom of things. That's why we've got that sweet trine between Mars, the planet of action, and the moon masses in Taurus. But the message is here, it's about compassion with the North Node in Pisces. And as mentioned, taking the sensible approach, South Node in Virgo and Mars in Virgo. It's about being detached and looking at our problems or issues in a more logical stance. We don't want to create more drama, but we want to become more detached. So if we're more detached, more logical, we use our sensibilities and we don't get over the top dramatic and kind of pull back on the bullying and just kind of go with the flow with the weather and the earthquakes right now. This could be a really positive time. We do have the Sun conjunct Jupiter in Cancer, however, and let's keep in mind that that also makes a sweet sextile to Mars. So if we can be compassionate, and what is Jupiter and the Sun telling us? To be real positive, not try to look at everything from a pessimistic standpoint. This is extremely lucky, extremely fortunate, and that will be our fate if we apply all the positive traits of this very intense summer solstice chart.